Howdy YouTube, Active Asshole on Roids here with another glorious rant. It's Active Asshole on Roids, kryptonite for conservatives. I'm off my roids, off my rocker, and on the warpath. Here we go. It's been a long time. I've been stuck at home on injury leave with a broken foot, and I really should have made more videos than what I have. I've been sitting on my laurels, but after the last midterm election, and especially after I had given like $200 out of pocket to Democratic candidates for the Senate and for progressive organizations, only to see such a huge defeat, I just threw my hands up in the air and slumped back into a hole and said screw it for a while. And I've largely just, and then there's the whole conversation I had with one fella in the comments section of my video in which I lambasted the so-called liberals who use the false dichotomy argument, which is eerily similar to the false dichotomy argument that libertarians use in the hopes of getting liberals to either stay home or side with them. I guess it's true what they say. You can only go so far to the left until eventually your views overlap with the far right. Centrist extremist theory. So I just felt dismayed enough that I realized that Marcus Molitzes Zuniga, in spite of my agreement with him on the issues, in spite of my agreement with him that the DLC and the Blue Dogs have done a lot of damage to the progressive movement and to our past accomplishments in this last century. You know, I guess Marcus Molitzes Zuniga has created the perfect environment in which Democrats will sabotage themselves all the while believing that they're actually accomplishing a damn thing, which sort of reinforces Stephen Shive's arguments that we liberals lack focus and that we cannot accomplish a damn thing because we just have too many differences among ourselves. And I'm dismayed by this. I've been out, just not getting involved in anything political, not reading up or catching up on what's going on, occasionally going into Sam Sater's channel and arguing with a libertarian here and there, but for the most part, just letting most of my stuff fall to the wayside and just sitting at home and resting. But recently I got into an argument with a libertarian, finally offline, and it really was an argument. There was no debate here. It started out as a nice discussion, but then eventually it came out that this guy was in fact a libertarian when I started bad-mouthing Frederick Hayek. I guess pissing on his patron saint, or at least one of them, was enough to raise his ire. But initially we were talking about the weather because I had met him on the way to my mailbox because he lives right next door to me. Yeah, it took me this long to figure out to find an actual libertarian offline in Auburn, Alabama, which has the Von Mises Institute in it. This whole time I was looking for one to actually get into it with, just for the sake of getting into it, and one was living right next to me. Right next to me, man. And here's the weird part. This guy actually gave me, he actually referred me to a public function at a public library, even though he was arguing for Austrian economics. Yeah. But we started arguing about global warming because I started talking about the weather, and he started throwing out this bullshit talking point about volcanoes being the cause of the increase in global temperatures, and I kept on saying, no, dude, that's bullshit. We've been doing core samples and studies from and measurements of atmospheric atmospheric gases, of tree samples, tree core samples. We've been doing research on this for over 70 years. And that wasn't good enough for this asshole. He just kept on saying, "Oh, but you're saying that these companies that are like ExxonMobil and Koch Industries that are paying my scientists, you're saying that they have a vested interest in making money, and that." You replied with the same old libertarian talking point of, "Oh, but these scientists, they have a that say that global warming is real, that climate change is man-made. They have a vested interest in making money, government money. They have a vested interest in getting money from the government." But what this guy completely forgets, what this asshole completely overlooks, is the fact that when you're a respected professor at a major university and you have tenure, you don't really need government investment in your research as much. You don't really need it. And it doesn't surprise me that this guy was arguing from the whole, well, they have a vested interest in making money off this too kind of thing, because most libertarians are of the mindset that just because they think everything should be centered around money, that the rest of us think that way. Hell, I don't think that way. Fuck it. I'm happy that I have my job and I make enough money to support myself and take care of my bills and stay out of trouble. But I'm not so fucking driven by money that I put that above humanity in general. I just, oh God. And the thing is, I shouldn't get bent out of shape over this asshole. I shouldn't get bent out of shape over libertarians popping off platitudes like this. I gotta move a bit, sorry. Foot of mine, it's in a boot down here. And I shouldn't get upset about this, but even after all this time, just the sheer level of misinformation, the right-wing dribble had me so wound up. I was visibly shaking, because I was both happy that I got the chance to exchange barbs with one of these people offline, and at the same time pissed because this guy was deliberately throwing out misinformation, untruths, half-truths, taking scientific fact and then taking in a lie and a kernel of dishonesty and throwing it in there to try to sell a greater lie. He was using the whole left drawer, right drawer methodology that I could see through, because I used that crap myself back when I was a libertarian. And eventually he cracked. At first he tried to pretend he wasn't an Austrian economics proponent, and then he cracked when I started talking about Friedrich Hayek like a piece of, rightfully so, saying that his belief system was a product of the times, and that ultimately his beliefs were proven to be ill-founded, because eventually there was a wave of deregulation after the first 20 to 25 years of centralized planning in Europe and in Britain and the United States, especially in the United States and in Japan and places, that central planning boards were dissolved and everything, and people started going back to the way things were largely before the war and everything. But the thing is, many libertarians today want to claim that, oh, but Friedrich Hayek wasn't referring to centralized planning leading to totalitarianism. He was referring to people becoming dependent on government. Ooh, soft socialism, creeping communism. Ooh. But most people who read Friedrich Hayek's work know better. Most people who've reviewed his work know better. He was making the argument that totalitarianism would arise from government intervention in societal problems, because he was living in an age when there was Stalin's 5-year plan and Mao's and Mao's Great Leap Forward and all this shit, and to a lesser extent, increased centralized planning in the United States and in Europe to combat the effects of the Great Depression, and centralized planning within the Third Reich and fascist powers who were gearing up for war against the rest of civilization. You know, he can. You know, libertarians can claim that Friedrich Hayek was not a product of the times, that he was in fact correct all they want to, but the fact of the matter is, he was a product of the times because nothing turned out the way he said it would. He was not arguing against social programs so much as he was arguing against continued centralized planning. Libertarians try to they try to twist this shit around and everything. Now, I haven't really read Friedrich Hayek's Road to Serfdom, but I've ordered it offline. Now, I'll tell you why. I want to read this shit. I want to read this work for the first time, even if I have to whip myself through it, even if I have to beat myself through it, just like I did with Atlas Shrugged. Just kludgy fiction. Because I want to be able to argue against their shit as well as I can for their shit. I'm actually going to try to retool myself so I can argue from an economic standpoint instead of a historical standpoint and a philosophical standpoint against libertarianism. You know, I've always had an easier time arguing against libertarianism from every other perspective except economics. And when I do argue against libertarianism in economics, it's always been an educated guess, and I've always managed to at least make them look like jackasses by keeping them talking. And usually that's all you have to do. But sometimes you feel frustrated because you're dealing with folks who seem to be so fixated on economics and so driven to take over economics departments and professorships and everything. That's all they think about. And then you wind up feeling like even though you know they're fucking morons based on history, you can't really outright argue with them on contemporary things as well. But after he finally threw his hands in the air, after we exchanged barbs for about 25 minutes, saying, "Oh, you're not worth it. Oh, you're a loser and you're not worth it. You're stupid. I'm just gonna walk on." You know, throwing his hands in the air, because the truth be told, our argument had devolved into just a shouting match where he would say one thing, I would say another. We try to talk over each other, and we were throwing talking points out there and factoids and facts and things like that. And doing it so fast that the other person didn't have the time to really refute it and everything. And as venom-filled as I can be with these people, I was being one snide son of a bitch. I was being one smug, snide, utter asshole. Hence my namesake, Active Asshole. My bullshit meter pegged multiple times during that whole exchange, and I was wearing a shit-eating grin, and I was pissing on this guy's belief system, and he was just getting so mad. You could see it. I was visibly shaking myself, but I was doing a better job of hiding it than he was, because this guy looked like he just... And just as I was walking back from the apartment, the guy was hollering behind me saying, "Well, I guess since Friedrich Hayek was a product of the times, I guess 1 + 1 = 2 is a product of the times." And I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, Friedrich Hayek might have, I mean, Austrian economics, von Mises himself said that he believed that the philosophy should not be, that as an economics school of thought, that Austrian economics should not be judged by verifiable evidence, by verifiable empirical data, that it should not be measured by that. I mean, what more proof do you fucking need than the fucking patron saint of this guy's movement claiming that they don't think that they should be held up to the same standards as every other fucking ideology out there. And yes, I did make the claim that that Austrian economics was derived in part from policies pursued by the Third Reich during the Second World War and the Great Depression. Also something that he was all like, well, now that is a bunch of bullshit. Well, that is a bunch of bullshit. Really? 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 Von Mises himself was credited with creating the conditions in Austria that allowed Hitler the levels of recruitment for his cause that he attained. The Third Reich pushed privatization. Of course, they were calling it something completely different in German, but privatization is an English translation of a German word. I believe it was reprivatization or something. I'd have to look it up again. And Hitler was a union-busting bastard who had communists and socialists rounded up and put in concentration camps. And he did believe that the Social Democrats were a threat, that they were part of a Slavic conspiracy against the German people, or a Jewish conspiracy, whichever one he was. Again, he went back and forth between Jewish and Slavic conspiracy so much during that period of time, but claiming that they were both. What was I going to say? Just then you have Robert Welch and all these guys in America, and you had guys like Gerald L.K. Smith and groups like the America First Committee and the Silver Legions here in America pushing for ideology, for exactly what von Mises and the Third Reich were pushing in Europe, in Germany. It just, this video is running a lot longer than I wanted it to, but again, this is an untranscripted video. But I got on Facebook right after that, and I talked about about the argument with my friends. And eventually, and this is the part this is the part that I'm actually, this makes me fucking happy as hell right here. Glenn Beck, the crap king of conspiratorial nonsense, actually commented on my post. That's right. I'll put a link to the conversation. I'll put a link to the post in the video comment section, just so you guys can look at this shit. Glenn Beck decided to troll my post. I don't know whether this drunken, suicidal, megalomaniac, identity theology touting, Alex Jones conspiracy theory propagating fuckwit is doing so badly that now he has a lot of free time on his hands, or what. I'm just thinking to myself, I don't debate guys who can't even keep their spot on Fox News in spite of the standards for Fox News being so low they're touching fucking dinosaur bones. Wow. What does Glenn Beck do? Does he just get on the Does he just get on the internet with a bunch of guys and look for posts on Facebook, random posts? I'm a nobody, for crying out loud. I'm just thinking to myself, wow, you're so fucking, so thin-skinned that you actually have to go on there and troll posts by random people. Just search Facebook for random posts to troll. How did he even stumble onto that shit? This is just a conversation between me and my friends, for crying out loud. I'm not even that big. I got like 174 friends on Facebook. That's it. Yeah, Glenn fucking Beck trolled my post. Oh man. And I'm just thinking to myself, ooh, ooh, I'm moving up in the world. Ooh, ooh, I'm pissing off enough conservatives that they're actually bringing out the big gun. I'm pissing off enough libertarians that one of the king shit pins of their propaganda movement has decided to come forward and throw a snarky little comment here, a little backhanded compliment in there. So I'm just that post was golden. The sheer awesomeness of this post, simply because I pissed off Glenn Beck enough that he had to comment on there. The sheer awesomeness made my testicles feel like they wanted to explode. Oh man. I mean, I've had my barbs traded with Stephen Molyneux, but now Glenn Beck, all I need is Alex freaking Jones to come out and pop his mouth off at me, and the trifecta, the triumvirate of crazy cultist libertarian fuckwit will be complete. This is Active Asshole on Roids. Peace out, everybody.